girls, grab your beers.
Hey everybody, this is Charlie from Anthrax, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle.
This is Mark Metcalf, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle with Bailey on Domain Cleveland Radio.
You are listening to today's Boondoggle with Bailey on Domain Cleveland Radio. Yes, Kato Kalin listens to this all the time.
Welcome to today's Boondoggle. Now here's your host.
I am Monty Heath, so one Heath, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle.
Hey, what's up? It's John from Skillet, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle on Domain Cleveland Radio.
Fasten your seatbelts.
What's going on, everybody? It's Bill Bailey with today's Boondoggle. And a real quick housekeeping note, if you're watching us on YouTube or Rumble or BitChute or Odyssey, please hit that follow and subscribe button. And if you're listening to us on Spotify, Apple, Google, whatever podcast platform you utilize, please hit that follow and subscribe button so I can continue to bring you conversations like the one I'm bringing you today. I'm talking with Army veteran George Gomez. What's going on, George?
Hey, how's it going, man? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, dude, I'm excited. We were just talking a little bit before going on, and normally when I have veterans on, we talk, mostly about their military experience, but it sounds like we have some other stuff in common. So shout out to our mutual friend Brandy for connecting us for this conversation.
Yeah, for sure.
But usually when I have people on for the first time, I like to take them back and ask them, originally, what did you want to be when you grew up?
What did I want to be? You know what? Yeah, before I even got in the service, I was leaning towards something in electronics, as I was always taking stuff apart, trying to fix it, trying to figure it out. So I was always getting into something in the tech field. It was either going to be in computers, or I was going to be or wanted to get into maybe being an electrician.
Nice. And then, when was it that, you had that calling to serve your country?
Yeah, they called me, actually. I graduated in '93, and I wasn't sure what was going to happen as far as, college was going to go. It's not like I put money aside and I wasn't, doing college visits. I just figured I'd probably end up at LCC, doing something, following something to get into that electronics field, So I was laying in bed one day and got a phone call from an Army recruiter. Now, mind you, I'm like 18 years old, hair halfway down my back, and the guy gave me his spiel. I went down there and we went through and did everything. And he's like, this is the job that I would, if you were my son, this is what I would pick for you. I'm like, okay, why not? And the rest was history after that. I signed up and took everybody by surprise.
I bet. Well, usually like recruiters, they don't really want to sell you something that they'd actually make their sons do. But how did that end up working out for you?
It was good because I ended up, amazingly enough, I ended up doing something that I enjoyed, and it kind of fit into my wheelhouse. Because we took the test and all that, and the MOS that came up was a 24 Tango Patriot Operator System Maintainer, and he said, you work on the Patriot Missile System. This is the thing that shot down the Scuds, and I'm like, okay, that sounds, interesting, enough. I'm like, I can pursue that. And of course, then he sells you on the GI Bill, you can, go to college and all that. I'm like, okay. So yeah, I did that and I actually enjoyed it.
So like you were saying, you kind of had hair down your back. Obviously, were you already, we'd mentioned that you kind of got into music. Was music already kind of a thing also in the background during that time?
Oh yeah. I had already been playing in bands before I had, joined the service. I was in a couple of projects when I was in high school. So yeah, I had already been playing. I was playing at, I don't know if you ever been there back in the day, Flashes, out in King's Corners.
Yeah.
That's where I got my start. You know, I was in a local band called Agony and Ecstasy, and we would play. You had to play musicians' night in order to, you know, for them to check you out before they would actually let you play. So yeah, that's where I got started. Was, you know, my first ever show was at Flashes. So yeah, I was playing before I got in, and actually I had the opportunity to play a few times while I was serving too.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Now, I've interviewed in the past. I don't know if this was available at the time when, you know, you signed up, but I guess there's this program out there. There's this band called As You Were, and they're active duty Army veterans that go around touring and playing a lot of the music festivals. And it's part of like their program that they use as a recruiting tool, you know, to kind of go play high schools and stuff like that as well. And, you know, say, hey, you want to rock, you know, and also serve your country. Here's your opportunity, you know. So it's like one of your duty stations gets to, you know, be in a touring band for a little bit. And of course, then, you know, needs of Uncle Sam eventually take over. But
yeah, no, I didn't know anything about that. I have actually, I was following some of the Army band projects like through Facebook, and we actually got to see one of them at Playhouse. But no, when I was in probably sometime in my training at AIT, which, I mean, my AIT for Patriot was like 8 months.
Oh,
so
wow.
I just happened to fall upon where the band room was, and I was like, I almost switched careers to like be in the Army band. Because I walked in, I'm like, oh wait, I didn't realize the Army had, you know, a band, like, you know, like a regular, like a concert band or whatever. But I actually had a friend of mine who joined, and that's what he did. His whole career was playing, you know, in the Army band.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, and then you know, going back, like you said, you know, you got the call from the recruiter. You're kind of like figuring things out. You're there, showed up with your long hair and everything, and then, you know, he convinced you to go to boot camp. Obviously, that long hair went away.
Yeah, I made sure I cut it before I showed up, because I was like, well, you know, I've had this for a long time. Actually, I went to Fantastic Sam's, and I said, hey, listen, I need you to braid this up, cut this. I'm like, I'm going to save this, you know, because this is like, you know, been a major part of my life. And then, so I showed up with short hair, and then it got way shorter once we showed up at boot camp. So yeah. That was weird.
Yeah. And then, like, what was it, you know, coming from, you know, the life that you knew and your lifestyle? What would you say was like some of the oddest things that you witnessed or experienced coming in then to the Army?
I don't know if anything was odd. It was just a whole new experience, and I just kind of went with it, you know. You know, you show up, and then, you know, you get off the cattle cars, and that's when reality hits you. Like, you're thinking, okay, yeah, we're going to go to the Army. I'm going to basic training. I really didn't know much. And then, you know, you get off that cattle car, and then they're just in your face and screaming and shouting and everything else. I'm like, oh, all right, you know. But, I mean, I had a few people tell me, hey, when you go in, just keep your head down, do your thing, don't take it personal, you know, kind of treat it like your parents, let it go in one ear and not the other, and just do your thing. Which I know, like I said, I mean, no matter how much you got yelled at, I never took it personal. So I never like lost sleep over it or got upset about, you know, okay, you know, it's just that was part of basic. You know, they got in your face and you got yelled at. I mean, they weren't allowed to hit you. So I'm like, well, I didn't have that kind of fear in me, you know. So what are they going to do? Make you do push-ups? Okay, that was the extent of it.
Yeah, I remember that myself too. It was just like, and it, you know, it's all, you know, a lot of it's just a mental thing, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Mentally tough you are and prepared for that. So it was like going in with that knowledge was like, you know, that was the key. But then, like as you were in for, you know, as you got through boot camp, what was, you know, what was the process like then? You said 8 months training for the Patriot Missiles. What was that experience like?
That was interesting because, you know, I mean, I did basic at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, you know, so we went from there to Fort Bliss, Texas. And then when I got in November. So I actually got to split up my basic because I got to go home for Christmas. They wanted everybody gone. They said, hey, Christmas is coming up. You guys are all going home. I mean, there was a couple guys that didn't go. So, you know, the drills had to stick back to babysit. But so I had the luxury of splitting up my basic training in half. But yeah, going to Fort Bliss, Texas, you know, just totally new area. I never really did much traveling other than visiting family in like California or whatever. So, I got to experience El Paso, Texas, and the culture down there, and the temperature down there, and realizing that a lot of us that were there were from Ohio. So when it got a little bit cold, which something that we would shake off, everybody else is like shivering and doubling up on their sweats, and they're like, "What's wrong with you?" I'm like, "We're from Ohio." I'm like, "This is nothing." But it was
when it got
interesting.
super hot.
Yeah. But I mean, out there, it would get triple digits in the shade, but there wasn't a lot of humidity, so it wasn't that bad. It didn't take long to climb, to get acclimated to the area.
Yeah, I remember my last deployment to Kuwait, how hot it got out there, but it's a big difference when it's a dry heat, like that humidity that we deal with here. It's just like you're stuck,
Right.
And then
I loved it. I was looking like I wore shorts 11 out of the 12 months out of the in the year. It's like I love the weather. It was great.
Nice. And then without like breaking OBSEC during your time in, what would you say is probably one of the worst places that you ended up serving at?
There was nowhere that I served that I thought was horrible, because after base or after AIT, we went to Korea. Now mind you, our barracks were in Osan, which is a Korean Air Force base, and then our gear was all our gear was in Osan, which is an American Air Force base, and then our barracks was in Suwon, which is a Korean Air Force base. And we had heard of rumors that we were being kept in an abandoned, barracks, but good enough for Uncle Sam.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say anywhere was horrible. It was interesting to going overseas like that, and then seeing the culture and how things are done over there. But I don't think anywhere I was at was ever horrible.
And what was that experience like? Growing up here in Ohio, and then you kind of saw a little bit of I guess I would say maybe a little bit of a different American culture down in Texas, but then going all the way to Korea, what was that experience like?
It was an interesting experience for sure. Just seeing the culture down there. We had time to go out and explore. But they told us where to stay away from. Apparently they were worried about the big thing they would tell us is they showed us like some of the writing and said, "Hey, don't go in here." Basically, they didn't want us going to the pharmacy. I'm like, okay, so they're worried about people, and being young and naive, I didn't know much about drugs and getting into that kind of scene. That just was never my thing. I served 5 years and I came out. I really don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't do anything. I like music and movies, and stuff like that. But I never really got into that kind of scene. I had my wisdom teeth pulled out when I was in, and they gave me 3 days convalescent leave, and they gave me a bottle of I think Percocet. And my roommate's like, "Hey man, I'll buy those off you." I'm like, "Oh, I didn't pay for them." I'm like, "If you need them, go ahead." But little did I know that people, would get addicted to painkillers. I didn't know anything about that. So I was like, "Yeah, dude, yeah, take them, whatever. I didn't pay for them. You can have them."
Yeah, well, that's definitely a good, good thing good way to live. I unfortunately, did the other route for a number of years, but been 15 years sober now. And it's just like, for me, it was like, I was in the Navy. So it's just like, I know part of the, it was kind of enabling. And I've heard, similar with the Army too, it's just, you get off work and some people are just bored, nothing else to do. We all get together and drink and have a good time. But sounds like you had a good head on your shoulders, and that wasn't
I was always the designated babysitter. So I was the designated driver. I was always the sober one. So I was the one driving, when everybody else wanted to go party. I would just, because that wasn't my thing. So they knew they could rely on me to make sure that they got home safe, because they had the non-drinker that could take them to and fro.
Yeah, nice. And then what would you say is one of your favorite places you got to serve at?
Korea was pretty fun. It was, and then after that, I went to White Sands. White Sands was interesting, just learning about the stuff out there and just being, just the traveling around. I mean, because going to White Sands, it was just north of El Paso, so almost like circling back to where I started before I left. But it was kind of interesting because White Sands is a research and development base. So and then it spans. I mean, it spans quite a distance. It's a lot bigger than you would think. If you look at it on the map, I mean, it's a huge testing ground. But I mean, I like the stuff that I saw when I was there. That was kind of neat.
Where was White Sands at again?
In New Mexico.
Okay, and that's that wasn't anywhere near Roswell or nothing, right?
No, I never got a chance to go to Roswell. I went up to Albuquerque, and I went to the VLA, the Very Large Array. If you ever saw Contact, that movie Contact, when they showed all those satellite dishes and all that were on here in the States, that's where they filmed it at. And we had some training that was over that way, so that was kind of cool to see up close and in person. But no, I never did go to Roswell, so
never got to see any UFOs during your time.
No, not at all.
or none that or your NDA is still active.
right.
And then like during that experience, what else you said Korea was really good, but you enjoyed the White Sands. Like, what was kind of like the off-duty life like out there?
Well, I mean, you're in the middle of nowhere because you're in the desert. So, I mean, if you wanted to do anything, you were either going into Las Cruces, New Mexico, or you were going to go down to El Paso. Because, I mean, there's nothing close by because, like I said, you're in the middle of nowhere. But, I mean, we would, like I said, we were young, so we were going into town, me and my buddy, I mean, we were into cars, and so we're constantly hitting the junkyards, getting stuff to fix our cars up, modifying our cars, putting stereo systems in them and whatever, hitting the mall and cruising there, because that's what we did when we were young. We just cruised the mall just like we did when we were in high school. So
yeah, like wherever the women are hanging out, we got to find out.
Right. Yeah, doing that. If there was a show in town, then we got to see a show. That was great. I mean, I got to see.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to ask you, is like if you were still able to, keep involved in the music scene during your time.
Yeah, actually, and then I found a band to play in when I came back to White Sands. These guys I went to this bar, because if you found me at the bar, it's because I was there to see a band. I wasn't there to drink, or I was babysitting my friends that wanted to go to the club or whatever, and so. But yeah, I had made friends with the bartender at this bar where they were at, and this band came in that I got to meet. It was a national touring band called Caroline Spine, and they came through quite a bit on their circuit. So I got to meet, we made friends with them. We actually opened for them at one point, so it was kind of cool. But I mean, I got to see a lot of cool shows. I made friends with some people locally. We traveled to Arizona to go see Metallica. So nice. It's kind of cool. But I still was able to see shows.
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, I got to see the Horde Fest tour. That was when like Lenny Kravitz, Blues Traveler, Dave Matthews, they played at the local college, at New Mexico State, in New Mexico State. So it was kind of cool. I'd still being able to see shows and get to see live music.
Oh yeah, definitely. I remember like during a lot of my time in some of the bands that I ended up becoming friends with here in Cleveland, and especially when I was still in like the reserves and I'd have to go away for training, I'd always check like locally, okay, I'm going to be down here for the 2 weeks of training. I know I'm going to have the evenings off most of the time, so who's going to be in the area playing? And then I'd be like, oh, so-and-so's going to be here. Let me hit them up. Like, Hatebreed's coming through town. Let me, hit those guys up so I can connect with somebody,
Right.
So it was always a good time. And then, from your time of active duty, military, and then transitioning out, back in the civilian world, what would you say is like one of your biggest pet peeves with civilians?
Getting out, I don't think I had any pet peeves. Now that I'm getting older, I have plenty of pet peeves. The older you get, I mean, I tell people like almost every day, I just say I hate people. I just get, the older I get, I'm realizing why people are grumpy old people. I'm like, yeah, it's just as they get older, they just get.
We're becoming the get off our lawn guys now. Yeah,
exactly. And I'm like, I never thought I'd be that guy. I'm like, oh no, I'm gonna grow old, have long hair, but listen to metal music. It's everything's all good, but yeah, but no, I mean, getting out, it was just more okay. What am I gonna do now that I'm out? I'm like, I'm done because I just noticed that things were just. I saw the way things were going when I was in, and I'm like, yeah, I think it's about time to go. Just seeing the bureaucracy and the politics of it all, I'm like, things are just getting a little silly.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, I think it's time to go.
What time frame was that when you got out?
So I got out, and I always tell people I hit the sweet spot because I was in November '93 to November '98. So I missed the Gulf War, and all that. So I had a friend of mine that was mad because he never got to see any wartime. I'm like, I'm glad I didn't see any wartime, but I was in that sweet spot. So I got in right after there was some nonsense happening, and then I got out right before more. So it was peacetime when I was in.
Yeah, I went in '92, but I ended up retiring in 2012. So it's just I got to enjoy, a lot of that peacetime, but then like you said, the second half, not so much. It was just it was fun how much money we had to go spend on training, evolutions and stuff, and then and then the purse strings kind of went away, and it was all and then it was go time, and it was it's okay. I mean, I knew kind of what I signed up for, but but like you, yeah, I was I started seeing the writing on the wall, but I was too far over my 10-year mark, that I was just I'm gonna have to bear down and deal with this for a little bit longer to at least try and get that retirement,
Right.
And then what is something that you feel you always carry with you from your time of service?
Funny enough, getting up early, that never changes.
Yeah.
No matter what, it's no, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's built into my character, from just being in. It's the tact that I learned when I was in. I've always been tactful when it comes to certain things.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's just I would say that.
And then what's one of the funniest stories that you feel you can share from your time in?
Oh God. I mean, off the top of my head, I'm not sure. I mean, there's plenty of stuff that's, that I've seen happen, all right. I got two quick ones. I always made sure to make it a point to go home on leave, every 6 months. So my birthday's in June, so I go home in June, and then I would go home for Christmas, and that kind of just split everything up. I had come back to Korea from being on leave, and then we had gotten into formation, and we had just gotten this whole spiel from the commander about, listen, I don't need you guys getting drunk at night, hollering out the window, crowing like a rooster, blah, 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 blah. And the guy goes, man, because that was him. Our commander was, part of the redneck community over there. So he was hanging out with our country boys, and they had all got hammered. And it apparently was him doing it, but he's sitting there giving a speech to the whole, to everybody saying, hey, I don't want to hear about this. Don't be doing this. So I'm like, okay.
Nice.
And then the other thing that happened when I was out there is that I'm a heavy sleeper, super heavy sleeper. And we actually had a fire drill one night. I found out about it the next morning in formation. I didn't have a roommate at the time. And apparently they had a fire drill. I mean, they were banging on doors and everything. And so they're talking about the fire drill. I'm like, what fire drill are you guys talking about? He goes, they had one last night. We had formation. I'm like, you obviously didn't take accountability. I would have burned up. I slept through a full-blown fire drill.
Yeah, obviously they didn't do a head count or something.
Right. Yep. I told him, I said, if it had been a real fire out, I'd be done.
Yeah. I mean, the drill was a failure. You guys missed an important step.
Yeah, they failed the accountability for sure.
And then what would you say is one of your greatest hopes for, the country that you've been willing to give your life for?
Oh God, now you're gonna start getting deep. Honestly, the division. I'd like to see that come back together. For me, that would be it.
Yeah, it's like we've forgotten that we're all, really on the same side. It's just
Right.
they've
You
come
know,
up with
you
so
see those
many-
posts where they say, "Hey, I miss the way the world was, on 9/12."
Yeah,
And I'm like, I get that because everybody comes together and they're that for me, it would be the division. To see that lack of division.
yeah. It's like that we all flew the same flag on 9/12, and now everybody's got multiple flags they're flying behind, except for that particular one. It seems like
Mm-hmm.
And then, what do you feel we could do to break the stigma of mental health and PTSD for our military?
Oh, see, this one hits close to home. Not that I suffer with PTSD, but my wife does. I don't know, man. As far as breaking the stigma, and that's the thing, and probably just better education about it, and better support.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've heard people from both sides, we need to talk about it more, address it, I mean, and I kind of lean towards that as well. It's like I'm like I said earlier, 15 years in recovery now, and they say in meetings, a problem talked about is a problem cut in half. If we're bottling
Right.
stuff up and ignoring it, it doesn't
Yes.
go away.
Yes.
I've had other veterans say, "Oh, everybody needs to quit talking about it," whatever. I'm like, nah, man.
And that's that old school mentality. Just
Yeah.
shut up, bottle it down, just keep moving.
Throw dirt on it, keep
Right.
moving.
Yeah, no, I would say I probably learned a lot, because of my wife, with her dealing with it. And I've learned a lot going, through that, because I really didn't know much about it because I didn't suffer from any of it because I didn't see anything traumatic in my time in, or even just growing up.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I've learned a lot about that. And yeah, that is a major issue for sure.
I know
shouldn't be
for
taken
me,
lightly.
yeah, exactly. I know for me, it was like, my dad was a World War II Marine. He was in the invasion of Okinawa, and that was before, they had what they have today for PTSD. It was just came home. It was that old school mentality. We don't talk about it. I don't want to talk about what I saw over there. I want to talk about my time over there. And, I had a pretty decent upbringing, but there was those times those flashes, I'd be acting out or something. I'd see a different side of my dad, and there would be a lot of growing up, a lot of fear or, resentments and stuff. And then, but always trying to get that approval. So obviously part of why I joined, and then I go over, and I go through some things myself and bring home my own PTSD. But for me, it was more like because of what's available today and all the work I've been able to do, it also brought some closure and forgiveness to, my relation and understanding, and empathy for my dad. And thankfully, before he passed away, I was able to have the conversations with him that I needed to, and realize that he was doing the best he could with what he had,
Right.
And, so it's like, but if I had kept his kind of way of doing things, our relationship probably would have been a lot different, So I'm glad I went through the journey I went through, because it's like, I believe in, what's it called? The cycle of trauma, breaking the cycle of trauma or whatever in your family, and, I've been trying to be that for my, to pass along to my kids, and also heal and forgive the ones from the past,
Right. I mean, I feel like a lot of times it's like, if you're not dealing with it personally or have a close connection to it, then you're not really going to understand it. So sometimes when you're on the outside of it, then you're like, I don't get it. And I'm like, of course. I mean, because if you haven't dealt with it, or you don't have somebody who's dealing with it and see it firsthand, yeah, you're not going to understand it. And then you're going to kind of just dismiss it. It's like, I don't know what your problem is.
Yeah. And like for me too, is like, I had to face it when I got sober, it's just like I was numbing it and avoiding it for so long, and even getting sober, it's like, I have an addictive personality. So I'll find other ways to numb, throw down a box of, a carton of ice cream or something, something else that's not,
right.
justify numbing it, or, just, acting out in other ways, but the more I keep working on myself in my recovery, the more I'm able to keep, addressing and healing that part of my life, and, doing my best to try not to harm, the family tree, I guess.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So then, I wanted to touch back too on, what it was like. I mean, you said as a kid, you were kind of got into electronics, taking things apart and stuff, but what was it like, after, you go through your A school or whatever with the Patriot Missiles? I mean, did you ever get you were during peacetime, but I mean, I would say for training, you've got a chance to, fire some of those or whatever, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. When I came back to White Sands, we had some training missions. We actually, they had one that was called Patriot as a Target. So it's like, I wasn't actually shooting at something, but they created a scenario so that, because you can't shoot unless you have something to shoot at, because it's a defensive weapon. Yeah. So they had to create a program and make something, make you think that you're going to engage something, because they were actually using us as a target for another system to shoot at us. So they actually let me sit behind the command center and be a part of that mission. So then I had to press the button and spend $1 million. So I was in the control station when I hit that button and I heard that thing go off, and I actually was able to keep the blast panels off the back of the canister broke in half, and I kept that as as my my souvenir from being able to shoot that thing.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So, I mean, now I was reading a little bit about, what you've done since you got out, and like kind of like what you do today as what is it, a fire tech?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a fire systems technician, I guess that is the title.
Now, how much would you say any of that training in the military helped kind of carry over to the civilian world?
So the troubleshooting side of it definitely carried over, because I mean, we learned how to run it, and then we learned how to fix it. So then they put us in front of schematics, taught us how to troubleshoot. So I would say, the troubleshooting, and just and the hands-on of that part of it, because I'm not, I'm one of the guys that's not afraid to get my hands dirty. Okay, we can start pulling things apart using a meter, tracking things down, looking at prints to see, how is this supposed to be, how is this supposed to go? Where are the wires running to? How's this supposed to work? So that definitely carried over is the troubleshooting of it. Because when I first got into the career, I was just mainly installing. And then I fell into maintenance, kind of like what I did when I got to Korea. They said, hey, we're going to have you over in maintenance. I'm like, well, good. That's what I enjoy doing. I don't want to sit in front of a scope 8 hours a day. Like, leave me in the field. Hey, something went wrong. Let's go pull apart. Let's go, troubleshoot it. Let's go fix this. So I'm like, I love to fix things. So, and I still do that to this day. I mean, I'm there to install these new commercial grade fire systems, but I'm also, when you fire them up and they're not working right, you have to be able to troubleshoot and figure out what's wrong with them.
Gotcha. Now, what was, the training like and getting into, and just kind of explain what being a fire systems technician is and how you got into that.
I got into this because of a guy that I used to work with who had left ADT when I was there. And he goes, hey man, I'm over here at this new company, Johnson Controls, I'm working for a new company. And Johnson's is not new, but, and he goes, I'm trying to put a team together and I need some guys here. And, he's like, yeah, he goes, we put in the fire systems over here, but you're going to be an installer. And he kind of goaded me with the whole, like, hey, you won't need to be on a ladder, and you're just going to use a computer and you're going to program and get stuff online. You won't even need a drill, which That's a lie. I have a drill now. So, but I mean, the main priority is like, you get a new building that gets a brand new fire system. You got to look at the prints, take what you get from the prints, program everything in, saying, okay, this fire system has, this many smokes, heats, whatever. You got to program all the logic for it. And then, once I don't actually do any physical installing anymore because the electricians will pull the wire, mount the devices. In a perfect world, I just show up, plug my computer in, and, download the panel, put the program in there, and then we fire it up and test it, make sure it's working like it's supposed to. So it's a lot less physical than what I was doing when I was at ADT, but it's a neat environment to be in, and the things that I get to see, because now instead of being residential, I'm in commercial, which I actually like it a lot better. So I'm not.
Yeah.
When I was at ADT, I was residential service, so I was in 6 to 8 houses a day, averaging about 150 miles a day.
With the homeowner like over your shoulder, nagging and stuff like that.
Yeah. What do you mean I got to pay for this? And I saw the state of things, the way the company was going. So he kind of called me at the right time. I'm like, yeah, I'm, like when I left, I mean, I give him my 2 weeks, and you have the option of keeping me here or telling me, you know what, just go. I told him, I said, I will work up to my last day. And I worked up to my last day like I wasn't even leaving, because I enjoyed what I did. Yeah. I just didn't enjoy the path the company was taking, what they were doing. Gotcha. So I mean, I enjoyed, because the cool thing about that was that you never knew where you were walking into, and that could be good or bad. But you meet a lot of cool customers. I always tell people, like, I miss seeing the dogs, meeting people's dogs, but you don't know if you're going to run into somebody that's really cool. That you might meet somebody famous for all you know. You just never know who you're going to meet and what kind of connections you'll make while you're doing that kind of job. Yeah, but there's also a lot of headaches with that too, because it's like, oh well, I can't be there for another 20 minutes. Oh, can you wait? I got to go drop my kid off, or I got to go do this. So here it's all commercial, so they're going to be there at 8 o'clock in the morning. So you're going to go in, you're going to do your job. You're not going to hit any resistance doing what you got to do. So it is a lot better, a lot less stressful.
Yeah, I was curious about the system too, because it's like my girlfriend's a firefighter, so I'm just what it say there is an issue with a fire or something after hours, no one's there. What exactly does the system do?
So what happens is that if there is a fire and a sensor goes off, then of course the system goes off. You're going to hear it. It's going to dial out. Central monitoring is going to get a hold of the local fire department and say, hey, such and such building, we reported a fire, and depending on how it's set up, and then they'll dispatch from there, and then the fire department shows up.
All right, gotcha. And then kind of circling back now too, to your love of music. What have you been still playing? Are you still involved, or just
not as much as I used to now? Yeah, I would say more a fan than playing. The band that I got, when I got out, I had gotten into a band for a few years called Pit, and we had played Peabody's and a lot of the local places. And then after that dried up, I joined a band called Morality Check, and I was with those guys, I don't know, probably like 13 years or so. And then they do a side project that's like a Disturbed cover band called Stupify, and and we saw how the scene kind of changed over the years. Playing all the shows where, hey, you got ticket sales and this and that, and then when you've been around for a while, then the fans stop showing up or whatever. It's just kind of, I always tell people it's harder to be in a original local band than it is in a cover band.
Yeah.
People will show up for stuff that they know. So when we saw that starting to dry up, we focused more on the covers, and then it just started taking up a little too much time for what was going on with, in my life. So I kind of walked away from that and said, hey, listen, I'm like, you guys want to play more and you guys want to travel more. I can't give it that kind of time. Do I miss it? Absolutely. Those guys are still going to this day, and they're still going strong. And I actually I've played 2 shows this year. The old band got back together and said, hey, the cover band is half of the members that was in the original band. So they said, hey, we're playing at the show. Do you guys want to jump on stage? We'll do an original set opening for the cover band. So I got to do that twice so far this year. And now they're talking about, hey, maybe we'll play a couple shows a year. We'll just get together, knock some dust off, and just, for nostalgia reasons. So I'm like, yeah, I'm cool with that.
Yeah, I remember Morality Check. I remember that. the name. You know,
Mhm.
I'm sure I seen you guys at Peabody's on on one of those like you said, when everybody had to sell tickets and whatever and
Yep, all those hardcore marketing shows, and
yeah, yeah, and then but then Stupify too. There was like one of it was like kind of fresh after COVID, and they were finally like bands were finally starting to play again, and me and my buddy, big metalheads, were just like, man, we got to, none of the big like touring things were happening yet. But I remember Sly Fox had Stupify play. Sly Fox and North Olmsted had Stupify play, and I think Ashes of the Wake, like a Lamb of God cover.
I was there.
You were all right. I was there.
I think I was there that night. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just like, me and my buddy Steve were like, we went, and it was just like, for us, it was like being at Disturbed and Lamb of God, because it's like, it was like that time period where we're like, are we ever going to see the originals again? So it's like, it was great, man. It was a good time.
Yeah, I mean, when I first joined them, they told me, hey, we're an original band, but we do this thing called Stupify where we do Disturbed. We do that on the side to make money to pay for the original band, because they knew there was more money in covers. Yeah. But when I joined them, that was, so long. It was like back in like 2003. So Disturbed was still fairly new. So it was kind of ahead of its time. So people were like, but this band is new. Why would we want to book a cover band when this band's, But yeah, I mean, now cutting out of 2024, they're still going at it, and they're still booking gigs and still doing good. So
now, did you actually play with them that night, or are you just there hanging out?
No, I was there. That was after I left the band.
Okay. So yeah, we had to run into each other.
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I remember that. It was just like, how excited we were, because it's like, everything was still so up in the air around that time period.
Mm-hmm.
And now, unfortunately, Sly Fox is gone. But
yeah, I know.
I see the local or whatever is kind of like, the local in Strongsville, and they just opened up a local in North Olmsted at the old Slam Jam. So there's still some venues trying to come back and make a comeback. We lost the Fantasy, we lost Peabody's, we lost, so much that if, like you were saying, it's like the local scene isn't what it used to be anymore.
No,
it's like,
it isn't.
It's like money's in the cover,
Yeah, no, we spent a lot of time at Peabody's. We would go to the Agora, we go to the Odeon. We went to back then, the Hi-Fi, which was the Blind Lemon, which is now the Foundry. Yeah, the Fantasy. So, I mean, I was just at the Foundry Sunday night. I went and saw Green Jello. So,
okay, yeah.
I mean, I'm glad that there's, I'm glad that venue's still there. We go to the Winchester, so there's still plenty of places to go. It's just, but yeah, the local scene's not what it used to be. So if I'm going out, I'm probably seeing either a national act, or I'm probably going to go see a cover act that I might have seen before.
Yeah, it's like I mean, like you were saying, it's like, and now I guess the Foundry and Winchester are teaming up with the Mercury now, Lakewood. So it's like there's places for bands to play, but you don't see as many of that scene unity as we used to back in the day, where everybody kind of like, hey, let's put together this show, let's all get together and play that. And it's like, I mean, what first kind of my involvement, I used to book shows with, Domain Cleveland. I would book the venues and book the bands, and even that became, quite a headache, because it's like, all right, you guys are going to play at this time. Oh, but my guitar player can't be here till this time because of work, because they didn't like their spot, so they tell their guitar player, show up later, or something. And it's like, yeah, man, that definitely added to my drinking. So it's like, I'd rather do this now.
Right.
But
I mean, they were great time. It's not, like I said, it's not like what it used to be, but it was great. I mean, in its heyday, it was definitely awesome.
Oh yeah. There was always something going on, and we all felt like Norm Peterson. He'd show up, and everybody knew your name too. It was like you had that family environment.
Yep. I mean, well, that's how I ended up being here, because of the connections that I made just from playing shows. I mean, it's how I met Brandy. So, and
yeah,
I met quite a few people just through the scenes. And I was like, "Who's that?" I go, "Oh, yeah, I know them from the music scene." So, there's a lot of connections that I made that I've kept all these years, which is nice.
Yeah, for sure. And then, before we get ready and wrap up, I want to ask you a couple questions that I normally ask the guests I have on. Talking about music, who would you say are your, kind of had your influences starting, but who would you say are your like top 3 listens today?
Like, who am I listening to currently?
Yeah.
I keep going back to 12-Foot Ninja. They're an Australian band. I really, and I keep going back to the album Outlier. I love that album. I mean, musically, and the drum work on it is just really, really awesome. I mean, that's the one band I'll circle back to them a lot. I don't know, something about that album that I just keep circling back to. It's like, well, yep, that'll get me all pumped up. I'll listen to that, Nice. I mean, I've always been a huge Metallica fan, thick and thin, no matter what they put out, no matter what, everybody's, will say, oh, this album's crap or this. There's not an album that they put out that I can say, no, I don't like it. I mean, I even like Saint Anger, everybody's like, I hated that. But when that came out, it also came out with the DVD of a live performance of them practicing it. I love the audio on the DVD way better. But when I first heard Saint Anger, I'm like, oh, this is kind of like Injustice. It's kind of got that raw, gritty sound. And of course, everybody's just fixated on Lars's snare, like whatever. I mean, musically, it's still good, no matter what the mix is. I mean, the music's still, for me, it's still good. So,
gotcha.
Are
you looking forward to seeing them at Sonic Temple next year?
You know what? That's the one thing I don't do much anymore. I don't do the festivals.
No,
I'm not. Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of over being in a big crowd of sweaty people, and no. I like going to small venue shows. I like small, intimate venue shows, but I also go to big shows. But the festival thing, I don't know. I don't know if I can hang out all day and camp out like that. I mean, they sound like great shows. I would say the last festival that I went to was Warped Tour.
Gotcha. Yeah, and it's like a one day, you
right?
Go home. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I see some of these festivals. Like, it sounds like a lot of great bands, and considering what they're charging, it's not bad. But for me, it's like I'd probably have to be like, well, like I hear about the people that go to like Inc., and they get like the VIP experience, where they can sit in the tent and all that. I'm like, I might do something like that if I had somewhere to kind of hang out and kind of chill out. That I think my days of being pressed up in the pit, just not knowing when another foot's gonna fall on your face. It's like, oh. Yeah, no, I'm good.
Yeah, I'm with you there, 100%.
Yeah, I'm more like, I want to enjoy the band than have to look out when when the next guy's gonna come flying over my head.
No, I did.
Or have the fat drunk guy that wants to take off his shirt and he's just rubbing up against you. I'm like, dude, yeah,
like Fight Club. Now, did you happen to go to the Metallica when they played Detroit on this last?
I did.
Okay, yeah.
And so
I got my tickets through VetTix, man.
You know what? That's kind of funny. Is that I had got my tickets in advance because I'm like, I want to see them. And I was mad because they first released weekend only. So I'm like, and I saw who the lineup was. I'm like, I want to go Friday because I want to see Pantera.
Yeah.
I can give two craps less about Five Finger and Ice Nine Kills. I don't follow either one of those, but I'm not a big fan of Five Finger. So I told the wife, I said, I want to go, but I want to go on Friday. And I got my tickets. But then VetTix released some tickets. So I grabbed two, and they ended up being better than what I had. So I always watch out for those. And I'm like, yeah, that's that, sometimes I get a nice little cheap upgrade. But yeah, I went to the Friday show.
Yeah, I ended up going to both of them because, like I said, I got them on VetTix. I couldn't pass up. It was worth the drive.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's not that far either. And it's a nice venue.
Yeah. And then, talking back about, kind of like the future of things and what we'd like to see happen, in our country. What classes do you feel should be mandatory before graduating high school today?
I mean, there's stuff that you should have learned, before you got. But the things that times have changed, though. Things that I would probably want to know are probably, it's totally different now. With everybody's got information at their fingertips with technology, But I mean, probably, something to show people how to, like, handle their finances,
Yep. It's like the number one answer I get, for that question.
Right.
It's like they'll teach you how to rack up credit, and teach you that, buying and keeping up with the Joneses is cool, but paying for it, and
Right.
and not going to jail. That's
Yeah, no, we had shop class and home ec class and stuff like that, but I mean, I don't even know what they even teach anymore, But yeah, there should have been some more stuff that should pertain to, like, life skills that would,
I agree.
Yeah, because I know, as a person who has actually dealt with a bankruptcy, I mean, that was the one thing that I before I left the service, I'm like, I had to declare bankruptcy. I racked up some serious credit. I'm like, yeah, this is not going to fly. I'm getting out. Don't know if I'm going to be working. I'm like, yeah, I went through a bankruptcy getting out. So I'm like, I went a little too nuts with the credit cards,
Yeah.
Like, here's a Sears card with 23% interest, and it's like, holy crap, next thing you know, your bills are through the roof.
Yeah, no, I've been there myself, man. So, I can relate. And then, who are 3 people who've inspired you and you can credit for making you the person you are today?
Ooh, geez. You like these on the spot questions here. My mom, first and foremost, because I have a really strong, close relationship with my mom. She's she's my number one. And over the years, my wife has kind of shaped the way I am now, just through our life experiences. And I would say I probably inherited my mechanical abilities from my dad, because he was a mechanic. My brother, he's mechanically inclined. And then, of course, there's a lot of musicians in my family, so that's, I get that too.
Nice. And then, favorite toy as a child?
Oh, God. I don't even know.
You're too busy taking them all apart, huh?
Yeah, I mean, wow, favorite toy. I honestly, I couldn't tell you. I had plenty, but I just couldn't tell you of a favorite. I mean, I still have my Nintendo.
Yeah.
And it still works.
Yeah, it's like I had plenty too, and then I think it always ended up like doing something, like my imagination seemed to be my biggest, thing. It's just like, all right, I had this, the superhero figures, and I had like the G.I. Joes, and I had the Star Wars and stuff like that. But then I became like a big, wrestling fan, and I built my own little ring, and I had all those action figures as my wrestlers and stuff,
Right.
And it's just like,
yeah, like the solid rubber ones that they really move. Yeah.
Yeah. And then any message you have for our military brothers and sisters that are currently serving overseas?
Keep your head up. I know the biggest thing that I learned in the service, and I actually have a wristband with it, is, one of the biggest lessons that you learn when you're in, for me, was adapt and overcome.
Yeah. And then, well, before I get ready and wrap up with you, George, first, I appreciate your time, man. I'm glad Brandy connected us and we were able to talk. But usually when I have veterans on, I ask them to cut me like a promo ID for the show. So what I have veterans do is introduce themselves at the last rank they held before they got out. And then just introduce yourself at your last rank, and then and you're listening to today's Boondoggle.
Okay. Hi, this is George Gomez, specialist in the United States Army, and you're listening to today's Boondoggle.
Awesome. George, thank you for your time, man. It was great talking with you. And, hopefully I'll catch you out at one of these shows sometime soon.
Right on, man. Thank you for having me.
All right. Take care.
All right, man.